Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Lagos, there was a young girl named Amara. She was 9 years old and lived with her mother, Ngozi, in a small but colorful house in the heart of the city. The house was always full of life, with the sound of music, laughter, and the smell of jollof rice cooking on the stove. Amara loved to help her mother in the kitchen, stirring the pot and chatting with her. Her mother would tell her stories of when she was a little girl, just like Amara, and how the world was full of adventure and love. Amara loved listening to these stories, especially the ones about love. One sunny morning, Amara's mother told her, "Amara, today is a special day. We are going to visit your auntie Chinonso in Lekki. She has a surprise for you." Amara's eyes sparkled. She loved going to Aunt Chinonso's house. Aunt Chinonso lived in a big house with a beautiful garden full of flowers. She was always so kind and loving, and Amara couldn't wait to see her again. When they arrived at Aunt Chinonso's house, Amara was excited to see her aunt standing at the door with a big smile. "Welcome, Amara. I've been waiting for you," Aunt Chinonso said, giving her a big hug. "Come inside, I have something special for you." Amara followed her into the house, her heart racing with excitement. Aunt Chinonso led her to the living room, where a beautiful book sat on the table. It was a book filled with pictures of love, families, and friendship. "This is a special book," Aunt Chinonso said. "It's called Echoes of Love. It tells the stories of people in Lagos who have found love in the most unexpected places. Would you like to hear one?" Amara nodded eagerly. She loved stories, especially the ones about love. Aunt Chinonso smiled and began to read. The story was about a young man named Chijioke who lived in a busy part of Lagos. Chijioke was always helping people. He helped the old woman next door carry her shopping, and he always made sure his friends were okay. But no one had ever told him how much they loved him. One day, Chijioke was walking through the market when he saw a beautiful woman selling fruits. Her name was Adeabi. She was kind and always had a smile on her face. She noticed Chijioke helping a child pick up some spilled oranges, and she thought, "This man is so kind." After that day, Adeabi and Chijioke began to see each other often. They would talk for hours, laughing and sharing stories. Soon, they realized that they had fallen in love. But there was a problem. Adeabi's family didn't want her to marry Chijioke because they thought he didn't have enough money. Aunt Chinonso paused and looked at Amara, who was listening carefully. "Do you think love is only about money?" she asked. Amara shook her head. "No, Auntie. Love is about kindness and caring for someone." Aunt Chinonso smiled and continued the story. Chijioke didn't give up. He worked harder, saving money to show Adeabi's family that he could take care of her. Slowly, he built a business selling fresh fruit in the market, and Adeabi helped him by managing the business with her ideas. Eventually, Adeabi's family saw how hard Chijioke worked and how much he loved their daughter. They gave their blessing, and Chijioke and Adeabi got married in a beautiful ceremony in the heart of Lagos. Amara felt happy as Aunt Chinonso finished reading the story. "So, you see, Amara, love can be found when you least expect it, and sometimes, it takes patience and hard work. But love is always worth it." Amara smiled and hugged Aunt Chinonso tightly. "Thank you, Auntie. I want to find my own love story one day." Aunt Chinonso laughed softly. "You will, Amara. Just remember that love is not about finding the perfect person. It's about caring, sharing, and always being kind." As the day turned into evening, Amara's mind was full of dreams about love and the people who cared for her. She was starting to understand that love wasn't always about grand gestures, it was in the small, everyday moments, like helping someone or sharing a kind word. Amara and her mother left Aunt Chinonso's house that evening, and as they walked through the busy streets of Lagos, Amara couldn't stop smiling. She was thinking about how love filled every corner of the city, just like the echoes of laughter in her home. As Amara and her mother walked down the busy streets of Lagos, the city was alive with the sounds of people chatting, children playing, and the distant honking of cars. It was a familiar scene, but today, everything seemed a little different to Amara. She kept thinking about the story Aunt Chinonso had shared with her, about how love could be found in the most unexpected ways. "Mom," Amara asked suddenly, "do you think love is everywhere in Lagos? Like how Aunt Chinonso said it could be in small moments?" Ngozi smiled at her daughter. "Yes, Amara. Love is everywhere. It's in the way people help each other, the way they share their food, and how they listen to each other's troubles. Lagos is a city full of love, if you know where to look." Amara thought about this as they passed by a woman selling fruits on the side of the road. The woman was helping an elderly man pick up the bananas that had fallen from his basket. The old man smiled and said, "Thank you, young lady." Amara felt a warm feeling in her heart. Maybe her mom was right. Love was everywhere in the city. As they reached home, Amara couldn't wait to tell her mother what she had been thinking about. She wanted to learn more about the love stories in Lagos, just like the one Aunt Chinonso had shared. The next day, Amara decided to take a walk around their neighborhood. It was a sunny Saturday, and the streets of Lagos were busy as always. She saw her friend Chuka playing football with his brother, Emeka. Amara waved at them and walked over. "Hi, Amara." Chuka called out. "What are you up to today?" "I'm just looking for something," Amara said, smiling. "Something special?" Chuka raised an eyebrow. "Something special? Like a treasure?" Amara laughed. "No, not a treasure, but a love story." Chuka looked confused. "A love story? What do you mean?" "Well," Amara said, "I'm learning that love is everywhere. It's not just about big things like weddings or gifts. It's in small things, like when people help each other." Emeka, who was sitting nearby, chuckled. "You're right, Amara. Yesterday, I saw a man give a homeless woman his lunch. He didn't even know her, but he shared his food because he could see she was hungry." Amara's eyes lit up. "Exactly. That's love," she said. "It's not always what we expect, but it's everywhere. I think there are a lot of love stories in Lagos, maybe we just need to look for them." Chuka smiled. "I like the way you think, Amara. I'm going to start looking for my own love stories too." Just then, Amara's mother called from the window, "Amara. It's time to come inside. We need to prepare dinner." Amara waved goodbye to Chuka and Emeka and ran back to her house. That evening, as they prepared dinner together, Amara told her mother about what she had learned that day. "I think I'm starting to see love all around me now," Amara said as she helped Ngozi chop onions for the stew. Her mother looked at her with a proud smile. "I'm so happy to hear that, Amara. Love isn't just something we talk about, it's something we do. And when you do it, the world becomes a better place." The next few days were filled with more discoveries. As Amara walked around Lagos, she saw more and more small acts of kindness. A bus driver helped a woman with a stroller onto the bus, a street vendor shared his umbrella with a little girl caught in the rain, and a neighbor helped another carry heavy bags of rice up the stairs. One afternoon, Amara was sitting at the corner of the street near her house when she saw something that made her stop and think. It was an older man, Uncle Tond, who lived in the apartment next to hers. He was sitting by himself, looking a little lonely. Amara had never really spoken to him before, but today something made her want to say hello. She walked over to him, her heart feeling kind. "Hello, Uncle Tond," Amara greeted him with a smile. Uncle Tond looked up, surprised at first, then smiled warmly. "Oh, Amara. How are you, my dear?" "I'm good," she said, sitting down beside him. "What are you doing out here all alone?" Uncle Tom sighed. "I'm just thinking about life. Sometimes, it feels like the days go by so fast, and I wonder if people really care about each other anymore." Amara thought for a moment. She remembered all the love stories she had been noticing around Lagos. "Well, I think love is still around," Uncle Tom. "It's in the small things. Like today, I saw a man help an old woman carry her bag, and the other day, a friend gave someone their lunch. People care more than you think." Uncle Tom smiled at her, his eyes twinkling. "You're right, Amara. You know, I think you've reminded me of something very important. Love isn't just for special occasions or for family. It's in every moment." Amara felt happy. "Yes, exactly. And it's never too late to find it." Uncle Tom patted her hand gently. "Thank you for talking to me, my dear. You've made my day brighter." Amara smiled back and stood up. "I'm happy to help, Uncle Tom. Remember, love is everywhere." As she walked back home, Amara felt proud of the small acts of love she had noticed around her. She knew she was right, love wasn't just in big events like weddings or birthdays. It was in every small gesture, in every smile, and in every helping hand. As the days went by, Amara's heart felt fuller and fuller. Everywhere she went, she started to see the small acts of love that people shared with one another. She realized that love wasn't just something she read about in books or heard about in stories. It was real and alive, happening all around her. One day, Amara decided to take her search for love stories even further. She made a plan to visit more people in her neighborhood and ask them about their own stories. Her first stop was Aunt Ijeoma, a sweet woman who ran a small hair salon near their house. Amara loved visiting Aunt Ijeoma because she always made her laugh with her funny stories. "Aunt Ijeoma." Amara called as she walked into the salon, where Aunt Ijeoma was busy braiding a customer's hair. "Oh, Amara, my sweet girl." Aunt Ijeoma smiled, waving her hand. "What brings you here today?" "I'm looking for love stories," Amara said, sitting down on one of the chairs. Aunt Ijeoma paused for a moment, raising an eyebrow. "Love stories, eh? You've come to the right place." Amara smiled. "I want to know if you have a love story. How did you meet Uncle Obi?" Aunt Ijeoma's face softened as she put down the braid she was working on. "Well, my dear, it's not as simple as you think," she began. "You see, I didn't meet Obi when I was young, like most people think. I was already older, and I had almost given up on finding someone special." Amara leaned in closer, her eyes wide with interest. "One day, I was sitting at the bus stop, waiting for a bus to take me home after a long day at work," Aunt Ijeoma continued. "And then, out of nowhere, a man came up to me and offered to help me with my bags. His name was Obi, and he had the warmest smile I had ever seen." Amara smiled, imagining the scene in her head. "He didn't ask for anything in return. He just helped me and made me feel so comfortable," Aunt Ijeoma went on. "Over time, we became good friends. And one day, after many months of talking and laughing together, he looked at me and said, 'I think I love you, Ijeoma.'" "Wow," Amara whispered. "That's beautiful." Aunt Ijeoma chuckled. "It was. But it wasn't always easy. People said we were too old to fall in love, that we had missed our chance. But we didn't listen. We loved each other, and that was enough." Amara's heart warmed. "So love really can come when you least expect it, Kay?" Aunt Ijeoma nodded. "Yes, my dear. Love doesn't have a time or a place. It comes when it's meant to. Just be patient, and always stay kind." Amara sat quietly for a moment, letting Aunt Ijeoma's words sink in. She was learning so much about love, how it wasn't about being perfect or having everything planned out. It was about being open and kind, about helping others and making them feel special. Oh, thank you, Aunt Ijeoma, Amara said, standing up. I'm going to keep looking for love stories, and I'll remember what you said. Good girl, Aunt Ijeoma said with a smile. And remember, the best love stories aren't the ones you read about in books. They're the ones you live for yourself. Amara continued her search, walking through the neighborhood with a heart full of hope. As she passed by the small park near her house, she saw a familiar face, Titi her best friend. Titi was sitting on a bench, reading a book. Hi, Titi. Amara called out, running over to join her. Titi looked up from her book and smiled. Hey, Amara. What's up? I'm looking for more love stories, Amara said, sitting down beside her friend. I've been asking people about how they found love, and I want to hear your story too. Titi laughed. My story? Well, it's a little different from Aunt Ijeoma's, but it's still a love story. You see, I've always been close to my grandmother, Grandma Ada. She's the sweetest woman I know. And when I was younger, she always told me the story of how she and Grandpa met. Amara's eyes widened. How did they meet? Well, Titi began, Grandma Ada was a teacher at a small school in the village, and Grandpa was a farmer. One day, Grandma was walking home from school when she saw Grandpa sitting under a tree, looking a little sad. She didn't know him very well, but she walked up to him and asked, Are you okay? Amara nodded, listening closely. Grandpa smiled and said, I'm just thinking about my crops. They haven't been growing well this season. Grandma Ada didn't say much. Instead, she sat down beside him and just listened to him talk about his worries. She didn't try to fix things or tell him what to do. She just listened. That's so kind, Amara said softly. Titi smiled. Yes, and do you know what happened? Over time, Grandpa started to feel better. And one day, he looked at Grandma and said, You know, Ada, you've been a true friend to me. I think I might love you. Amara smiled. And Grandma Ada said yes. Titi nodded. Yes. They fell in love, not because of grand gestures, but because of kindness. They listened to each other, supported each other, and helped each other through tough times. Amara was quiet for a moment, thinking about all the love stories she had learned about. It seemed that love wasn't about doing big things. It was about being there for someone, showing kindness, and listening when they needed you. As the days passed, Amara's heart grew even fuller with the love stories she was discovering in Lagos. It felt like each person she met had their own special story to tell, stories of kindness, friendship, and deep love that connected them to one another. One afternoon, Amara decided to visit Uncle Sigen, the friendly man who ran the small electronics shop just down the street from her house. She had always admired how kind and patient he was, and she had noticed that he always took the time to help anyone who came into his shop, no matter how small their problem seemed. Amara knocked on the door of the shop, and Uncle Sigen greeted her with his usual warm smile. Oh, Amara, my young lady. How are you today? I'm good, Uncle Sigen. Amara said, beaming. I've been learning about love stories in Lagos, and I want to know yours. Uncle Sigen laughed and waved her inside. Aha, love stories, eh? You're asking the right person. Come sit down. Amara sat on the small chair next to the counter as Uncle Sigen cleaned a few gadgets on the shelves. Well, Amara, I've been married to your Auntie Edbimp for more than 20 years, Uncle Sigen began. But our story wasn't all smooth at first. Amara's eyes widened. What do you mean? I thought all love stories are perfect. Uncle Sigen chuckled. Oh, no, my dear. There's no such thing as a perfect love story. You see, When I first met Edbimp, we were both young and full of dreams. I was just starting my business, and she was studying at university. We were very different, but we clicked right away. Did she know right away that she loved you? Amara asked eagerly. Not at all. Uncle Sigan said, shaking his head. It took time. In fact, there was a time when we nearly broke up. Amara gasped. Really? Yes, he said with a sigh. You see, I was working so hard to build my business that I didn't make enough time for Edbimp. She would come to visit me at the shop, and I would be too busy to pay attention. She felt like I wasn't interested in her anymore, so she thought about walking away. Oh no, Amara said. What did you do? Uncle Sigan smiled. Well, that's when I realized something important. I loved her, but I had been showing it in the wrong way. I wasn't giving her the time and attention she needed. So, I decided to change. I started making time for her, taking her out on dates, talking to her about her day, listening to her dreams. I made sure to show her that she was important to me, not just with words, but with actions. Amara smiled brightly. That's such a beautiful way to show love. It is, Uncle Sigan agreed. But love is not always about making big promises. It's about showing the person you love that you're there for them, even in the little things. That's what makes love grow. So, did she forgive you? Amara asked, still amazed by the story. Of course. Uncle Sigan said, laughing. It wasn't easy, but she saw how much I was trying. And we both grew stronger together. Today, we've been married for over 20 years, and we still keep learning from each other. Love is something that you work on every day. Amara thought about Uncle Sigan's words as she walked back home that afternoon. It made sense. Love wasn't just about feeling happy all the time, it was about putting in the effort to make the other person feel valued and cared for. That evening, as Amara sat with her mother at dinner, she couldn't stop talking about the stories she had heard. Mom, Uncle Sigan told me that love isn't always easy. Sometimes, you have to work really hard to make it last. Ngozi looked at Amara thoughtfully. That's right, my dear. Love isn't something that just happens. It's something you build, step by step, day by day. And sometimes, that means making mistakes and learning from them. Amara nodded, taking it all in. She was beginning to understand that love wasn't about perfect moments, it was about the effort you put in, the patience you had, and the care you showed. The next day, Amara decided to visit her school to talk to her teacher, Mrs. Necker, about love. Mrs. Necker was known for being wise and kind, and Amara admired how she always treated everyone with respect. Good morning, Mrs. Necker. Amara said as she entered the classroom after school. Oh, Amara. Mrs. Necker said with a smile. What can I do for you today? I wanted to ask you about love, Amara said. I've been learning so much about it from everyone around me, and I wanted to know what you think. Mrs. Necker paused for a moment, thinking carefully. Well, Amara, love is very powerful. It's one of the strongest forces in the world. But it's also very gentle, like a flower that needs care to grow. The love you share with your family, your friends, and even with people you don't know, it all starts with kindness. When you show kindness, you plant a seed of love in someone's heart. Amara thought about this for a while. Kindness. So, love starts with being kind. Exactly, Mrs. Necker said with a warm smile. The little things you do for others, helping them, being there for them when they need you, those are the seeds that grow into bigger things. And remember, love isn't just for the people you know. It's for everyone around you. Amara nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle in her heart. She was starting to realize that love wasn't something you could simply search for, it was something you created. It was in every small act of care, every kind word, and every moment spent listening to someone. As Amara continued her journey through Lagos, learning about the different ways love showed itself, she began to feel that the city was filled with more warmth than she had ever realized. Every person she met, from the kind bus driver to her neighbor who shared her umbrella in the rain, had taught her something new about love. It wasn't always grand or easy, but it was real and powerful in the simplest of actions. One day, while walking to the market with her mother, Amara stopped to help an elderly woman carry her heavy bag. As she helped the woman across the street, she smiled and said, "I hope this helps." The woman looked at Amara with kind eyes and said, "You know, child, love is like that small, simple things that make the world feel brighter." Amara smiled, remembering all the stories she had heard. She understood now. Love wasn't about waiting for the perfect moment or grand gestures. Love was in the everyday acts of kindness, in listening to someone, in sharing a smile, or offering a hand when someone needed it. That evening, as she sat down to dinner with her mother, Amara thought about everything she had learned. "Mom," Amara said, "I think I've learned what love really is. It's not about big things or waiting for the right time. It's in the small moments, like helping someone, listening to them, and showing you care. It's in every kind thing we do." Ngozi smiled at her daughter with pride. "Yes, Amara, that's right. Love is something we build with our actions. It's the kindness we show to others, and the way we make them feel safe, happy, and cared for. Love doesn't always shout, sometimes, it whispers in the quiet moments." Amara smiled back. She felt like she was beginning to see the world in a new way. Everywhere she went, she saw love, like the echo of a song. As Amara learned, the echoes of love are always around us, and when we take the time to look, we can see them in everything we do. That never truly ended but played on in the hearts of everyone.